Good morning again, everyone.
Good morning.
It's good to be here. It's good to have the opportunity to speak to you all once again. I know it's been a minute, but I want to thank Brother Lawrence first and foremost for giving me this opportunity to say what's on my heart. Forgive me, I'm a little bit nervous here. Normally I like to come in a little bit more fired up. Due to some circumstances and situations, I had to put on the worship leader hat this morning. So if you'll forgive me if I don't start out as hot as I normally do. It really wasn't my intention. But I know if I follow my material will not fail me. Amen?
Amen.
Good. Well, I call this A Nation Betrayed. And you'll see why as we continue on through this. What I'll be doing, I'll be using the story of Jesus' betrayal by two individuals who was very close to him to teach us African people that we are not to trust everybody. So at this time, I would like to read a quote from Brother Arfikan from the book Young, Black, and Fearless to kind of get us started here this morning. And Brother Farrakhan says, black leadership has to recognize that principles more than speech, character, more than acclaim, is greater in advancing the cause of our liberation than in what has transpired thus far. And I would also like to get our brains warmed up this morning by doing a call and response, so if everybody would repeat after me. I am somebody.
I am somebody.
Black is beautiful.
Black is beautiful.
My hair defies gravity itself.
My hair defies gravity itself.
My hair was made to stretch towards the sun.
My hair was made to stretch towards the sun.
My skin absorbs all the sun has to offer.
My skin absorbs all the sun has to offer.
I am a child of the sun.
I am a child of the sun.
I am a God because his spirit lives within me.
I am God because his spirit lives in me.
I will uplift my African people.
I will uplift my African people.
I will honor the legacy of my ancestors.
I will honor the legacy of my ancestors.
I will not commit treason against my people.
I will not commit treason against my people.
I will not cower in the face of adversity.
I will not cower in the face of adversity.
I will build a foundation today so that my children can build a house for tomorrow.
I will build a foundation today so my children will build a house tomorrow.
Very good. Amen. All right. So now that we got our brains warmed up, we kind of got acclimated, and I'm starting to get a little bit warm here. Let's go ahead and move straight on to it. So as you know, Jesus was a Messiah. He was not the Messiah according to historical context, but he was a Messiah of the time. And so apparently he gets tired of going through this journey by himself, so he decides to start recruiting, doing a draft, so to speak. And so this is the disciple draft, as I like to call it, or a call to action. Now in Matthew chapter 4, verse 18, it reads, "And Jesus, walking by the Sea of Galilee, saw two brothers, Simon called Peter, and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. Then he said to them, 'Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men.' They immediately left their nets and followed him." Now I know you've heard this time and again. We've all heard it. But what does it really mean? You know, I find myself discovering new things in that old book that they call the Bible. The more I study other things, the more I study outside of the Bible, the more I understand what's in it. So The text revealed to me that Jesus specifically used this metaphor because Peter and Andrew were maritime men. That means they had a great command of knowledge of the sea and all it has to offer. They were fishermen. So they have to go out there, they have to know how to read the storm. And this is back before they had power boats, okay? So everything had a sail on it. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movies with the pirates. It takes a crew of people, even for the smallest boat. It says it was the two brothers and the father. It may have been somebody else on the boat. We don't know how large it was, but we know it does take a crew to keep this boat going. So he used this metaphor because that's something that they can easily understand. They're used to being on the water. So when he says, come with me, I will make you fishers of men, they don't even have to think about it because that's their culture. And if you look here, this here is the Sea of Galilee. Now, as you can see, this is more than, Creve Coeur Lake, okay? This is something that's quite a large body of water, and within that large body of water, it's kind of like an ocean once you get out there, okay? You can have ravaging storms, you can have peaceful seas, it can be a little choppy, but I'm just trying to get you guys to understand who these people were, who their culture was. All these people who lived around this fed off of the sea. So they had a great command of what was going on as far as sea time knowledge. These are just some of the different cultures that we as people had, okay? Wasn't everybody a ground pounder, as they call the army folk? Wasn't everybody a ground pounder? Some people, like these folk here, were sea people. Yeah, okay, your house, your family is on land, but these are people who make their living off of their sea. And if you read the text, you can see that they own their own boat and work for themselves. That's the beauty of it. If you take what you need and leave what you don't, the Creator will always make sure that there's enough food for everybody. Amen. So I can have a boat, and you can have a boat, and everybody in this village community can have a boat. And as long as we take what we need instead of what we want, there will always be enough for the next person. So understanding that civilizations that live near the sea have a great knowledge and understanding of working together, pulling and casting nets, working the boat or ship to leave port or travel to their destination. So it continues on to say that Jesus calls the apostles from his disciples. The 12 are set and are the closest to Jesus because they are in his innermost circle. The apostles knew Jesus well. Can we all agree to that? Amen. Someone who spends their time, their energy around somebody. It's like being on a football team or some sort of sports team. These are the people that you spend a lot of time around. So of course you're going to naturally get the understanding of who each other are as you're continuing to travel. And these fellas were in a close-knit community for a long time together. So that's important to remember as we continue to move forward, because it's not like they didn't know who Jesus was. It's not like they didn't know what he was about. He told her from Jump Street what he was about. Hey, I'm about making these fishers of men. I'm about this, what they would call nation building. That's what they call it. They call it nation building. Hey, come on, man. We're going to build this nation. We're going to help our people. That was a call to action. This is a call to action here. We're going to help our people. I don't care how sick and tired I get of picking up trash. Just in the short vicinity of my house to the church, I still do it. Why? Because somebody has to. Somebody has to do the hard labor work that is required to keep a community going. Look at North City. You know how much labor it takes to keep North City going. We need an army of people on a daily or weekly basis to come in and clean and dust and spray for spiders and weed outside, and every time you turn around with the few little people that we do have, as soon as you get done with something, you turn around and something else got to be done. We fixed the boiler over here, now the boiler over here done gone now. See, that's the whole bill that we've been talking about. That's the things that we have to work on. So it takes a nation to uplift and uphold a community, and we are only as strong as our weakest links, and we got quite a few weakest links. Quite a few weak links, but we'll discuss those people more as we continue on. So the text says in John 6, chapter 41, it says, the Jews there began to grumble. And of course, we're skipping around here, folks. We cannot possibly cover everything as far as you like, but I just want to give you a general understanding of what was going on and why I'm approaching this subject the way I am. So it says in chapter 6, verse 41 of John, the Jews there began to grumble about him because he said, I am the bread that came down from heaven. They said, is this not Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother that we know? Already they throwing shade, right? Y'all see that? Y'all might not understand. That's a young people term, throwing shade. They was hating. That's what they doing. Jesus ain't, man, we know your father and mother, man. You ain't nobody. We got this. You know how folk do it. So Jesus responds to them, stop grumbling among yourselves. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws them, and I will raise them up at the last day. And y'all know what Jesus was telling these folk? He was telling these folk that unless the Creator pricked your heart to do what I do, don't talk to me. If you're not about this life or what I'm preaching, and obviously you're not, since you're grumbling against what I'm trying to tell you, you know you done had friends, you try to give them some advice, and you know it's the right advice. Like you would, if you're a friend, you wouldn't give a friend bad advice, would you? No. Okay, so Jesus is a friend of the people. Why would he give his own community bad advice? But he telling them, if you are not on what I'm on, if your heart does not have the conviction for this nation building, you can get from around me. Because you are detrimental and devastating to what I'm trying to do. Every time I put 2 bricks up, you want to take away 1. Every time I take 2 steps, you want to push me back 2, maybe even 3 sometime. Because these are the type of people who are not happy in their lives. But they've been conditioned. We've been conditioned. Now, we're talking about the Jews here, but all of this stuff applies to us. So don't think I'm just talking about the Jews, because everything in here applies to us, because that's exactly how we act towards one another.
That's true.
The Jews of the Bible act like modern day black folk, don't they? People done fought and struggled and died, and you still won't do what's right. People had to die in the wilderness. People, a whole generation had to die in the wilderness, and these folks still ain't get it. How many times you gonna walk around in the wilderness? How many times are you gonna be conquered before you get it? I love black people, man, but y'all make me sick. Y'all get on my doggone nerve. I don't know what y'all problem is. Now here it is, these folk done studied and they're giving you something like this book here. You know what the good thing about this book is? It's a book for millennials written by a millennial. It's simple, it's straight to the point. If you can't grasp what's going on in this book and start you some sort of activism, then you really don't want to be a part of the struggle, because everybody say that I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do, Brother Lauren. How can I be an activist? Well, you pick up this book. And if you pick up this book and you, as a millennial, are not charged to do anything, you just might as well go on to sleep and forget about it, because it ain't no hope for you.
Deep sleep.
Deep sleep. Jesus wasn't saying that he was the bread from heaven, like, hey, I came down from heaven and I'm this, that, and the third. He's just saying, hey, I am who the Creator pricked my heart to be. He chose something special in me to lead you. That's why he's saying that I am the bread of heaven, because the calling that the Lord has for me, that is what I'm doing. That's why I call myself the bread of heaven. He was the Messiah for the time. Get it? For the time. Not the single Christ, but one of many. And we'll get to that in a minute. So it says in John chapter 6, verse 58, 64, it says, this is the bread that came down from heaven. Your ancestors, there's that word again, the ancestors ate manna and died, but whoever feeds on this bread will live forever. Knowledge of the ancients, this was food for the soul. The stuff that's written on stone, the papyri, that's what he's talking about here. That's the food for your soul. They didn't already grasp it. They already came to the peak of what a civilization could be. They had all the answers. Or I should say they have all the answers, because it's still there. It's just for you to pick it up. It's the same thing Brother Lawrence was just saying. If the Bible says you're supposed to teach your children in the way that they should go, well, how do you do that? Well, you got to go back to the ancient ways. Sometimes your child get out of hand, they need a spanking. I'm not saying they need a beating. I understand we beat our children. That's a part of the psychosis of slavery. But a child need a spanking once in a while. I love my white family too, but they kids be so bad, you be like, you know, slap them up once in a while. You know that's going to change your whole perspective, right? Come on, we black folk know what it is, you know. We understand. You spare the rod, you spoil the child, right? All right then. It ain't hard. You just got to go back to the old ways. Sometimes you got to use a string mop instead of a Swiffer. I'm just saying. Sometimes the string mop work better. See them old brothers out there with the newspaper and the Windex. Whatever it is, they got it covered instead of using the paper towel. So he continues on to say that on hearing it, many of his disciples said, this is a hard teaching. Who can accept it? This is too hard for them to do, aka I don't want to change. That's all it is. Too hard is code word for I don't want to change. And so we're going to move on with that one. Now, aware that his disciples were grumbling about this, Jesus said to them, does this offend you? Does this offend you? Listen to this. These are supposed to be his friends. Your friends should not be offended by other friends. Does this offend you? Then what if you see the Son of Man ascend to where he was before? What if you see me just go the way of the west and just disappear? What if I just leave and just drop everything? What if Brother Lawrence leave? Let's keep it home. What if Brother Lawrence leave and Sister Lawrence and they go back down to the homestead in Mississippi? They don't come back. What you gonna do?
Keep it real.
Well, what we gonna do? I was like, Tony, man, I think we gonna need to do some recruitment. It take more than just a few, Sister Dawson. It take others, and we've had others. We're not going to talk about them right now. I'll be getting into those type of people as we continue. But moving on, it says, the Spirit gives life, and the flesh counts for nothing. The words I have spoken to you, they are full of the Spirit and life. Yet there are some of you who do not believe. For Jesus had known from the beginning which of them did not believe and who would betray him. Most of the disciples were offended by Jesus' message, basically telling his followers that change comes from within, like Brother Demetrius always likes to say. That's one of his sayings, so I decided I pulled from him and his infinite knowledge of wisdom. So it says that Jesus was trying to use ma'at to reconcile the community, okay? So the 10 virtues: control of thought, control of action, steadfastness of purpose, identity with the spiritual life, evidence of having a mission in life, evidence of a call to spiritual order, freedom from resentment under persecution and wrong, confidence in the power of the master as teacher, confidence in one's own ability to learn, and readiness or preparedness to initiation. You know where I got this? It's been sitting on the back table how many weeks? I ain't even need to go look up on the computer where the virtues of my eye was. I said, well, it's still some papers on the back table. See how easy I did that? That means enough of us are not trying to research this information and apply it to our lives, not so much physically, but more spiritually, because once your spirit changes, then everything else is just going to follow it. Because your spirit is basically the power source of your body. So, even after following Jesus, most people still didn't believe his message, his spiritual teachings. Jesus was nation building by giving everyone a fair shot to change, but he was frustrated with his followers. This, modern day blacks, us, Africans living in America, have the same problem. And I can tell you, this is exactly how Brother Lawrence feels when he gives people a shot and they come in and use up the resources and they leave. Now, these supposed to be the folk who claim that this is what they do. I do this. I've been doing this for a long time, so when someone gives you the keys to a ministry that's already functioning, that has already been set up, it's turnkey, it's a turnkey operation. All you got to do is turn the key, turn on the lights, and open up the doors. Even the ones who look like us, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about these people here who followed Jesus all this time and didn't get one iota of anything that he was teaching them. I don't know if you've heard me say this, but I say all the time, if you had spiritually accepted the teachings of your ancestors, our ancestors, you would not act the way that you act. You done read all these books, we done been to all these lectures, and everything is everybody else's fault. The reason why we ain't got nothing is everybody else's fault. Then you want to poke out your chest like you've done something. Brother Lawrence been down here, I've been down here. You don't see me poking out the chest about the things that I do around here. I just do it because it needs to be done. This is not a popularity contest. This is not a dog and pony show. This is not pomp and circumstance. This is a lifestyle choice. I am here to tell you, this is a lifestyle. You can't just be pro-black and rah-rah when it's convenient for you. Peter, Judas, you can't be all rah-rah when it's convenient for you. Come on, man. These the type of people that make me sick because you claim you one of us, but you really ain't. You still got the spirit of the Wazungu inside of you. So Jesus says in John 64, starting in verse 67, after he lost many disciples, he says, yet there are some of you who did not believe, for Jesus had known from the beginning which did not believe and which would betray him. He went on to say, this is why I told you that no one can come to me unless the Father has enabled him. If your spirit tells you to do this. From this time, many of the disciples turned their backs and no longer followed him. And Jesus asked the 12, you do not want to leave too, do you?
Good question.
He was hurt. This is a man who felt, he had feelings, he felt pain. And the pain he felt When the people who were closest to him, or so-called closest to him, betrayed him, that broke his heart. He was already ready to go before the cross when his people betrayed him. You not about this life. You've been hanging around with me how long? And you gonna betray me? I thought we was better than that. But usually it's the ones who closest to you is the ones who betrayed you. They said keep your friends close and your enemy closer, but they really should say keep your enemies close and your friends closer. Now it continues on to say that Peter had conviction of his heart. He understood the message, but he was not mentally prepared to enter onto the battlefield. He was still dependent upon Jesus. Simon Peter asked him, Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. Peter was a sheep. It says in 69 that we have come to believe and to know that you are the Holy One of God. But Jesus replies to him and basically just tells him, like, hey, you good to go, Peter. You've been around me long enough. You've learned everything that I could teach you. When the sensei sends the student off, Sensei, I ain't ready to go off yet. Boy, I done taught you everything I could teach you. Now it's time for you to take what I taught you and apply it to the real world. He tells Peter, you got it. You've been with me long enough. You don't need me. You can do this, Peter. You can fly on your own. Not Jesus, but Peter didn't want to hear that. So continuing on, going to Matthew chapter 26, starting in verse 14, we see the first signs of Judas' betrayal. Then one of the 12, the one called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and asked, what are you willing to give me if I deliver him over to you? So they counted him out 30 pieces of silver. From then on, Judas watched an opportunity to hand him over. Now, Judas was the money man. The scripture tells us that Judas was the one who kept all the finances for the Jesus Nation building project, okay? He kept all the finances, and he said, well, if the ship's going down, and it is, I'm going to make me a quick buck on the way out. Come on now, y'all see that?
It's there.
And how much you want for Jesus?
It's there.
How much you want? 30 pieces? Cool, deal. I'll get back to you. Know this ship going down. I'm getting off while I can. Again, he wasn't about that life. Now, Matthew 27, starting in verse 3, reads, when Judas, who had betrayed him, here you go now. When Judas, who had betrayed him, saw Jesus was condemned, he was seized with remorse and returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders. He says, I have sinned. He said, for I have betrayed innocent blood. And they replied to him, say, well, what is that to us? That's your responsibility. So Judas threw the money into the temple and left. Then he went away and hanged himself. In verse 6 it says, the chief priest picked up the coins and said, it is against the law to put this into the registry, since it's blood money. Do y'all see the corruption? In just that short sentence. It is against the law for us to put this blood money back into the pot. But it ain't against the law for us to pay our clean money and pay it to somebody to do something dirty. Ain't that hypocritical? Hypocritical. Now that's the stuff that Jesus was trying to expose. That's why they ain't like him. He like, hey, all your foolishness, all your backbiting, all your hoarding, all your greed has got to stop. And they like, well, I got mine. You better get yours. because that's exactly how we do one another. So now the scripture tells us that Jesus had not only one betrayer, but two of them. Luke 22:54 tells us, then seizing him, they led him away and took him to the house of the high priest. Peter followed at a distance. And when some there had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and had sat down together, Peter sat down with him. A servant girl saw him seated there in the firelight, looked closely at him, and said, this man was with him. But he denied it. Woman, I don't know him. A little later, someone else saw him and said, you are one of them. Peter replies, man, I am not. About an hour later, another asserted, certainly this fellow was with him, for he is a Galilean. Peter replies, man, I don't know what you're talking about. And just as he was speaking, the rooster crowed. The Lord turned and looked straight at Peter. Then Peter remembered the word the Lord had spoken to him. Before the rooster crows today, you will disown me 3 times. And then he went outside and wept bitterly. Both men betrayed the struggle in very different ways. One got paid for his betrayal, and one got to keep his life. And realizing that he had betrayed the revolution and its leader, Peter wept. He cried. He denied the leader of the revolution when it was time for him to stand up and poke his chest out and say, I am with Jesus. I know Jesus. What you want with him? That's my man. You got to go through me to get to him. That's what you're supposed to do. But no, that was too hard for him. So let's see what Martin Luther King has to say about this. You didn't know Martin Luther King had something to say about this, did you? You're like, what Martin Luther King and the Bible got to do with anything?
You ain't read your Bible right.
Martin Luther King Jr. was once quoted by saying, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. Same thing. It's not good enough for me to do this when there's no heat going down. If this was a mega church, you can better believe that there would be some heat coming down on this facility because of what we're trying to do, the business of waking up black folk. If y'all ain't noticed it by now, there's a new mandate. It's waking up black folks. So if you see North City, it's going to be Love God Be Changed, a.k.a. waking up black folk. Now remember, Christ is only a title meaning the anointed one. Anthony Browder tells us that there were 16 Christs before Jesus. So again, he was only the Messiah for the time. There were 16 before him, which makes him the 17th, which makes him what? A man. Someone took the story of Africa, of Egypt, and they flipped it. They tried to make it seem like Jesus was this mystical man, and he wasn't. He was just a brother who was set apart to do something great, and in the end, his people, not the Romans facilitated it, but who's the one who brought it up? His people, the Jews, decided that, hey, this man got to go. We don't like what he's talking about. All this change, all this love your brother like you love yourself. We don't want to hear that. We want to do what we want to do, when we want to do it, and how we want to do it, and how long we going to do it for. Still ain't learned nothing since the beginning, but that's none of my business, though. Jesus, now watch how he deals with betrayal. Jesus deals with betrayal very differently from person to person. He puts Judas on blast, a.k.a. Front Street. So he puts Judas on Front Street in John chapter 13:27. As soon as Judas took the bread, Satan being the spirit of evil, not Satan as the brother with the horns and the red tail. We're talking about the spirit of evil. So when he says Satan, that's the spirit of evil. Satan entered him And so Jesus told him, what you are about to do, do it quickly. If you got something to do, come on and do it, because I ain't got no time to wait for you. If you ain't going to do it, I got other things I got to do. Ain't that how it was, Brother Lawrence, if somebody came up to your house in Mississippi? I got a problem with you. Okay, well, come on, let's hash it out. I got to plow this field, brother. Whatever it is you got to say, make it quick, right? If you're going to do it quick. If you're going to say it, do it quick too, because I got other things to do. The struggle still continues. The nation is still in a point of disarray. Ours is too. That's why we're making these correlations. But he says to Peter, he says, but I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. After the death of Jesus, Peter dusts off his boots, climbs back on his horse, and fights until crucified. As we know, crucifixion is reserved for criminals. And, you got to understand that Jesus was the Messiah the first time. He was preaching all-inclusiveness for his people. However, the illusion of inclusion, the message of inclusion, was his downfall. And why was it his downfall? Well, you see, we have to acknowledge that there are problems if we want to facilitate change. That was a quote by a sister named Elaine Brown. The first step to recovery as a drug addict is what? Now, y'all can talk to me now. Talk to me. What's the first step of being a drug addict? What's the first step to recovery? You have to admit that you have a problem. So we have to acknowledge that there are problems in the black community. Just put that in there. We have problems in the black community, and if we want to facilitate change, we have to acknowledge that there are problems. Our brother Elvis Cleaver states that you are either part of the problem or you are part of the solution. All of these quotes came out of this book. I'm telling you, I sliced through it in about an hour. It's simple. If you can't understand this, then you ain't got no business in the struggle, because you might just fool around and be Judas or Peter. And we should be excommunicating the Judases and the Peters, by the way. Like, I understand Peter, he did pick up the mantle after Jesus died, but by that time it's too late. You didn't already betray the struggle. You can't come back to the struggle after you've been in exile, after you betrayed the revolution. It don't work like that. So let's take a little passage out of this book, Young, Gifted, and Black. This is step 2. Don't talk about it, be about it. Repeat after me. Don't talk about it.
Don't talk about it.
That wasn't everybody.
Don't talk about it, be about it.
Don't talk about it, be about it. I don't want to hear your words. I want to see your actions. A lot of people give you that lip service. They'll give you a good lip service. Well, you see, brothers and sisters, it is not my fault that the Lord blessed me with that Beamer outside. You'll be like, but I do care about you. Go ahead and give me your rent money. You'll be like, how you care about me? And you just took my rent money. You took my gas money up. For what? So you could get a helicopter? Wasn't that Creflo Dollar wanted that helicopter?
No, those got out of Houston.
Oh, okay. He must have wanted that jet. That was the one.
Yeah.
Y'all give me this jet so I can do some ministry
65 million.
in, Montego Bay, Jamaica somewhere. You give me this money so I can live, and since I live good, you will be blessed because you blessed me to live good. Now, what sense does that make? That's doing the same thing the slave master was doing. Your treasures, not my treasures, mind you, but your treasures are stored up in heaven. My treasures are stored up on this earth right here. So go ahead and just give me the last of your rent money. Don't even worry about it. The Lord will provide. He always does. Just give me your money. I will even bless you with this bottle of holy water that I got from Schnucks this morning. So the text says, to be young, black, and fearless means to walk the walk first, then let your actions speak for you. I have this problem with my people who always have a mouthful to say on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Periscope, and whatever other social media outlet you can think of, but don't have a mere slip of a receipt to indicate what they actually do to help a given situation. With all that's going on in America and in the world today, there is little need for any more people on the internet, millennials, whining and complaining about what's wrong, millennials, if they are not actually going to do anything to transform the world. And she says, I get it. Change rarely ever happens overnight. Sometimes it takes months and even years to come up with a solution to critical problems, such as the issue of race in America. Again, don't talk about it. Be about it. Most people don't have your back and don't want you help you further the cause. Not about their life. Again, I'm not trying to talk about people, but you've seen some individuals here not too long ago who look like us, who walk like us, and who talk like this. And there's nothing wrong with these individuals. They're good people in and of themselves. Don't get me wrong, this is not a bashing session. I'm not bashing anyone. But I just want to let you know that everybody who says they love you and who is your brother is not your brother. Again, I have a problem with people who come in here and use the resources of North City without giving back. You had a golden opportunity. Keys were given in hand to a turnkey ministry. I had to earn my key. I sat down with everybody. Do you know how important it is for you to be here? Do you know what it means to be here? As someone who has been here since the beginning, I can tell you that it means a lot. You might not see it. It might not be in my lifetime, but this ministry will become something someday.
Amen.
We can't afford to be here. I don't have to tell you this, but I guess for my YouTubers who are going to listen to this, we don't have the money to be here, not with the people that we got. But the people who want to be here are here. We know who about it. We know Brother Craig, he does the Boy Scouts faithfully. He don't talk about it, he's about it. Sister Lawrence, our sister, Sister Dawson, Sister Mary, Sister Stewart, they always come in and make sure the food is prepped. They don't talk about it, they be about it. They walk the walk more so than they talk the talk. Now you always see these older generation. Now y'all know that's the older generation. Why y'all got the older generation working so hard? Millennials, young people, I'm talking to you, you ones in the back. Why you letting these older folk doing all the work? How come y'all ain't stepping up to doing stuff around here? Got a lot of work, but few hands. Amen. Everybody want to enjoy the fruits, the resources. Everybody want to come in and use the internet, use up the paper, use the electricity. Stuff that you would tell people in your house, hey man, that costs money. If you ain't gonna be in that room, turn that TV off. Oh.
Don't take away that stuff you didn't buy.
Right. Ain't put in nothing. Then folk look at me when I use the resources. I put in my time around here. I could use the resource. Well, what is it that you're doing around here? What do you mean, what is it that I'm doing around here? What kind of question is that? Folks say, oh, okay, you with that church over there. What you do? Which day? Sunday, I'm a worship leader. Monday, I might be a janitor. Tuesday, I might be a landscape man. Wednesday, I might be hanging out with Brother Lawrence. I might be a pipe repair man. You got to wear many hats around here in North City. You can't be just one. Can't tell you how many times we done came in here on a Sunday morning and a pipe done bust. Now hear me out now. Come in here on a Sunday morning, you got your mind and your heart prepared for worship. Then you come in, as soon as you turn on the lights, you all water on the floor. What does that does to a person? That's not cool. I don't like to do that. I don't like to go down there and mop up water and stuff and then have to come in here and try to get my heart and mind prepared for worship. Those two different mindsets. Those two different state of being. If I want to be a janitor, then I need to put on some boots and some pants. If I'm going to be the worship leader, I'm not trying to get dirty. I'm trying to keep my mind acclimated to what was going on right here, right now. So moving on, I always like to give context and history to coincide with this Jesus betrayal. I've given you some quotes. Now let me give you a few history lessons. Supposed to be flipping through these slides here. That's Brother Anthony Browder right there. Very deep. He got some good stuff. All right. Probably have never seen this very dapper, distinguished looking brother here. His name was Denmark Vesey. And Denmark Vesey planned a large slave rebellion, but was foiled by two African slaves, one by the name George Wilson, the other Joe LaRoche. When they told Charleston officials there was a revolt planned for July 14, 1882, George Wilson, who was a mixed slave, who was deathly loyal to his master. After Vesey got found out, he was put in prison for conspiracy to start a rebellion. Now, Brother Wilson, the mixed slave, his father was probably his slave master. A lot of times, the slave master would rape the slave mothers, and they would have these half-caste mulatto childs, okay? So we don't know for sure, but his slave master was probably his father, which gives you the duality of, well, if I can be a little bit more cruel, if I can snitch, if I can tell, maybe I can get some of these resources that Massa got. It ain't about whether they like Massa or whether they don't like Massa. Massa got the resources. So when you see these mulattoes, not all of them, but historical mulattoes were always used to infiltrate and create that buffer between the dark folk and the white folk. They always that buffer. So now you got to go through the half-caste, the quadroons, the octagons, all these mulattoes. You got to go to them to get to the white man. So these are the things that I just want us to understand about what's going on. And this is historical context. You can look this stuff up. You don't have to take my word for it. You can Google it. Matter of fact, I prefer you to Google it. That way you know I ain't lying to you. But then again, if I'm your friend, if I really care about you, am I lying to you? Don't answer, just think about it. Still not illegal. I want you to know that, by the way. Still not illegal to think. So after Brother Vesey was put in prison for a conspiracy, he told Minister Dr. Benjamin Parker he would die for a glorious cause. Now, 82 years prior to Denmark Vesey plot was another slave rebellion put down before it gained steam to leave the station. On August 30th, 1800, a literate slave by the name of Gabriel, who was 24 at the time, planned a rebellion and had at least 1,000 people with him, which he formed under the famous phrase of one Patrick Henry, "Give me liberty or give me death." Prosser was determined to march to Richmond, Virginia, to take Governor James Monroe and the armory hostage until the slaves received equal rights for all. Y'all see what he did? Y'all get it? He said, I'm going to march to the capital city, which is Richmond. I'm going to go kidnap the governor, and I'm taking over the armory. I know that we have been conditioned, and you have been lied to think that we should not own guns or any weapons of any kind, because that's not what Jesus would do. But I'm here to tell you that it ain't about what Jesus is going to do. It's about what you need to do. You need to arm yourself. But that's another lesson in and of itself. I might come back and do that, about the history about us carrying firearms. I believe everybody should carry a firearm, especially in this day and age. But you don't have to. If something happens and the police don't get there in time, just know that I told you that you should have got a firearm. So he takes the armory because he knows how important those guns are. Guns, bombs, whatever's in the armory, knives, swords, I don't know. Probably had a whole buffet worth of things that he could choose from. Might look like one of them Grand Theft Auto games or something. So it says, on that day, one of the worst storms in recent memory pummeled Virginia, washed away roads and making travel impossible. Undeterred, Gabriel believed that only a few people was necessary to execute the plan. So he's undeterred. He's going to keep going. We're going to see this plan through. Although many of his followers lost faith, he was betrayed by a slave, one of us. He was betrayed by one of us, a slave named Pharaoh, who feared retribution from his master. You know why we can't get nowhere? Because we not dependent upon one another. Again, it's about the I concept. You should not have the I concept. It's a we concept. You don't need to be you don't need to be independent. Everybody wants to say they want to be independent. Don't be independent. Don't be dependent. Be interdependent. Do we know what interdependent is? I know that's a word we don't hear too often. Do we know what that means? Interdependent means that we depend on one another. We are a community. We rise, we fall, we sink, we swim, we do it together. I'm dependent on you just like you depended on me. If Brother Lawrence asked me to do something, he depended on me to get it done. That's all it is to it. And that's the only way we can even manage to keep this place halfway clean. Because we delegate. You can't do everything by yourself. And you shouldn't do everything by yourself because we're a community. Everything should be done together. Many hands lighten the load. So again, we know one of us who feared retribution, who was only thinking about himself, betrayed yet another slave rebellion, just another revolution. It's not the first time, it won't be the last time, but I'm just trying to tell you that these are a lot of the people that we have with us in the community today. Everybody who looks like you ain't your friend. And I call it a nation betrayed is because I feel that this story of Jesus that I have just walked you through applies to us. The reason why the revolution has been unsuccessful is because we're not banded together. We always want to push one leader per revolutionary group. One Martin Luther King, one Malcolm X, one Garvey, one this, one that. The Black Panthers is one of the very few organizations that actually had multiple leaders, not just one. But then when they systematically take out that one leader, who's there to step up in their place? If Brother Lawrence, Sister Lawrence leave and go down to the homestead, which they very male white, they might just come in here one Sunday, they not here. They might be gone for good or they might be back, you don't know. But if you don't know that they going down to the homestead and you don't see them sitting on these pews, what you gonna do? Who gonna step up? Who gonna volunteer to do anything? It's called a nation betrayed because we are a nation who betrays one another. Our nation is constantly being betrayed by one another, by these type of Negroes, the step and fetch it type of Negroes. If you don't know about step and fetch it, he was the brother back in, I believe it was the 1930s, who really put this negative image, stereotype about the dumb black man into the white man's psyche. You can look him up on YouTube. I'm not going to spend no time on him. But he's what you would call a coon, a Sambo. He's another traitor because he's pushing these negative stereotypes. Okay? Someone like him. You think someone like him is your friend? This guy here, Let me move out the way so you can see it. This guy, him and his mama, both of these. But that's your friend, right? You're going to be friends with somebody who clearly wears the racist symbology on themselves, the symbolism. Y'all awful quiet. I hope I ain't hurting your feelings too bad. Stay with me, we almost finished. You especially don't trust these cats here. I'm not saying all cops are like this, because especially in my field, I work around a lot of cops. A lot of them are nice individuals, but then again, if I was outside of my uniform, would they be so nice? I don't know. But again, I'm not making sweeping indictments. But we do know that the FBI came out not too long ago and says, these people here are these people here. You see, daytime, overtime, weekend. These are the type of people who we're still putting our trust in. Why you put your trust in him? Why you gonna try to get this brother right here with this white hood a hug? If I just love this white man long enough, you know how we talk now. If I just love this white man long enough, if I just uplift other people, see this us right here. It's a couple ways you can interpret this, but this us right here uplifted somebody who ain't got no business getting no resources from us. Why is there a cow trying to eat bananas? Cows belong on the ground. They belong in the field. They're supposed to eat grass, but yet here these monkeys. You know they say black folk is monkeys, so here these black folk. I know I'm hurting your feelings, but stay with me. We almost finished. Here's these black folk lifting up, propping up somebody else for their own benefit when you doing all the back-breaking labor and they don't even have no business being up there. Getting your resources. These are the resources for the monkeys. The resource for the cow is the grass.
Good example.
The revolution has always been in the heart of the young. The young always inherit the revolution. That's a quote by Brother Huey P. Newton. And last but not least, Brother Frederick Douglass closes us out and says to us, it is easier to build up children than to repair broken men. And to bring this all full circle, when we did the call and response this morning, it says, I will build a foundation today so that my children can build a house for tomorrow. You cannot quit. You cannot give up because you're tired. Everybody can't catch a midnight train to Georgia. You cannot escape white supremacy. I am here to tell you that you cannot escape systematic racism. It's everywhere, unless you go way deep in the jungles where ain't no Africans been touched for 10,000 years. There's white supremacy everywhere. You can't give up. You can't move and leave just because it's convenient for you, because you think that it's going to be all better somewhere else, and it ain't. It's just going to be another form of systematic racism. So I'm here to tell you, if you really love your people, if you really love your children, you would take up arms, both physical and proverbial arms, to do what's necessary to save our community. Black liberation theology is life. My father told me recently that it's okay. I told him no, this is life. This type of information is life. This type of information here is life. Wicked words, poison minds, racism in the dictionary. Go get it. This type of information is life. We are facing a life and death situation. I'm trying to teach you this because it's not getting no better. It's getting worse. It's getting much worse for us. And we still sleep. We don't get it. It's time, as my father says, to fish or cut bait. And I'm finished.